You have made us for yourself, O Lord, and our heart is restless until it rests in you. St. Augustine. Welcome to the Understory Podcast. I'm Lord Sycamore, today with a guest interviewer who happens to be my wife, Kate. We're exploring the story under the song for Aching to Be Had, track 2 from my debut album, Child Coming Home. Hello everybody, this is Lord Sycamore. Today I've got my wife, Kate, here as a guest interviewer. Hi, Kate.
Hi, everyone. Hi, Nate.
Hi.
Good to be here. Thank you for having me. Well, today's song is Aching to Be Had. And I remember when you were working on your album last summer, it was a couple days from the deadline that we'd set, and you had, I don't remember how many songs, 6 or 7?
I was up to 7 at that point, yeah, which I thought was a proper number.
Yeah, a proper number, not to be an EP, long enough for an album.
Right.
And I think it was the weekend before we had decided you were going to finish it. And we kind of put life on hold while you were working on this album. So we wanted to stick to that deadline. And you kind of got this crazy idea of, Kate, you came to me and you said, Kate, I really think I need to add in another song or another, maybe was it 2 songs?
3 songs.
3 songs. Can you tell us a little bit about how that worked out?
Well, the main reason that I wanted to add these songs was because they completed the story. And not only did they complete the story, but I felt like in some ways it wasn't my story anymore. A lot of the songs did come out of my experience, but at a certain point I recognized there's something bigger going on. And I just didn't feel left alone about it. Like every time I wanted to shelve the idea, it kept coming back, like somebody just knocking at the door and demanding to be let in and eat up my time.
The song was persistent.
Yes.
All right, so can you tell us how this particular song, the Aching to Be Had, out of the other 3, or out of those 3 you added, can you tell us where that came from?
Yeah, well, I should be clear, 2 of the 3 are this song.
This song
Aching
and
to Be Had, and then the reprise that comes at the end. But yeah, it came out of an experience where you managed to drag me away from the project, brought me down to the creek near your parents' house along with our son, and we went swimming. This was the summer here in the Northeast, and it was beautiful and warm, and by all accounts, I should have been very happy and should have had everything that I needed in that moment. But I didn't. I had some sort of hole. I had something inside me that was incomplete. And so to figure out what was going on with that feeling, I started writing the song while we were down there at the creek. So it was born outdoors.
While you're working on the album, mind you. You're writing a new song in the middle of that process. Okay.
Correct. Yeah. And so I kept picking away at it because it kept pestering me as I was working on the other songs. And like I said, eventually I realized that it needed to be on the album.
Yeah, I remember that very well. Also, can you tell me a little bit, or tell the audience a little bit, how the song grew?
Yeah, it grew in constellation, I guess, or in the same system as the other songs, because
you mean the whole album?
Yeah. It picked up the resonance of the other songs, because the other songs I realized are really telling the story about this guy and his desires. And I realized to go from New Apartment, where the guy has these really strong desires, right into Come to Me, where those desires are being addressed. There was a space, and the space was basically the song where he recognizes the space in himself, where he recognizes I have these desires and they're gnawing away at me.
Yeah, I think it adds another dimension. It's not just, oh, I have the desire to have a girlfriend or to be married and have a family. It's another longing that even if you had the wife and the kid like you did in your experience this summer.
Correct.
Even if you had those things, there was still something missing. I think that's the depth that adds to the story. The song adds to the story.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. Thank you. And one of the things that struck me as I was working on the album was how these two different subplots really emerged. One was, like you said, about the guy and his desire for a wife and a child and a family. But then the other, like you also said, was that deeper relationship. And the second half of the album, while it comes back to the family and the child, it really, something else has to be dealt with first. And that other, I guess, desire, a desire for existential belonging. I'm trying to think of a simpler way to say it.
It's a desire for God.
Yeah, there you go.
C.S. Lewis says the God-shaped hole in your heart. There it is.
Or Augustine, you've made us for yourselves, and our hearts are restless until they rest in you. Yeah. That was basically what I was trying to introduce there, or what was needing to be introduced there, whether or not I wanted to introduce it there.
Yeah, and I think it really it's kind of the hinge. Well, there's a couple hinges in the album, but I think it really sets the tone, or you're right, it sets the space for, this isn't just about family and relationships, this is about my relationship to God, or the singer's relationship to God, and just adds that other dimension, which is really necessary for the rest of life, for all the other things to fall into their place, to have our desires ordered rightly. Is to have that desire for God filled first.
It's a beautiful way to put it. And I guess maybe just as one final note on that, a big inspiration for I guess you'd say the passionate language, the almost naked language the guy has, how long must I wander? The inspiration for those came from the Psalms, where there's a lot of wrestling going on and a lot of questioning, even by people who already have a relationship with God. And I was reaching back, I guess, through the language of the Psalms to my experience before knowing God, of just the emptiness and the sense of being alone on like a deep level that no one else could get to. And I just reached into all of those feelings and pulled them out into the song. And I was surprised. I was surprised by how strong those feelings still were. It really helped me to empathize with people who don't know God, to remember what that was like. And in some ways it was a really big spur to finish the project, because Child Coming Home as a whole, I made it for a couple people who I know don't know God, and I think of them and think there really is such a richness of relationship here. And if you resonate with these words from Aching to Be Had, of, how long must I wander? Will there be rest for me? Then the answer is yes, and it's in Jesus. And so I've been there too, and I just wanted to hold that out through the song and as through the album as a whole.
Yeah, I think it's really a universal longing that every human has. I mean, I've talked about it to you as homesickness, and our home is really in God, and that kind of fits in with this album as well. A child coming home, that home is really only met and found. All the things we want in home are found in God's presence. And I do think that's a universal longing. A lot of times, even like you were talking, we push those desires aside, or don't want to pay attention to that insistent knocking of the longing. Everything should be fine. It's beautiful out. The sun is shining, the water's beautiful.
I'm about to get an album done.
yeah, all those things. And we kind of don't pay attention, but I do think that even that story behind how the song came, of how it just is insistent, that's such a grace.
Yeah.
That it wouldn't let you alone. It's God saying, no, there's more here.
Definitely a call. And to connect with the song that comes after, Come to Me, it very much felt like a yoke in the sense of something that was being laid on my neck to direct me into work.
Fascinating.
Yeah. And yet in doing that, in following that call, I guess, and making it happen, or God making it happen, I did find rest, and I have learned a lot. So that just goes to show the truth of what Jesus says, that if we come to him and take his yoke, he'll give us rest, and we can learn from him. He was very gentle with me in the process. Let's just say that. Well, thank you so much for interviewing me today. It's been a real pleasure to sit across from you and talk. And
likewise, thank you.
I hope to do some more soon.
Bye, everyone.
Goodbye. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this story, please consider purchasing my music or donating to this work through my Patreon. Either way, I hope this was a gift to you and that you were encouraged by it. Have a good day, and God bless.